What's up, everybody? Uh, Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties, but I decided to move to the field where it looks better, right? At least I think that's the case. Um, but sorry for that little intermission. Let's get back into it. Post your comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, all that stuff. Let's see here. Hold on 1 second. Jenna Garcia is back in the house. What up, JG? Let's just do this. Boom. All right, here we go. Yeah, I'm back. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you for your concern. Zach Rosenberg in the house. Andy Kaius in the house. What's going on, everybody? How is the stream? Is the internet holding up pretty well while I'm on the field out here? That's important. I've, again, plugged into Ethernet that I've found out here by the field. So I'm hopeful that it's going to hold, but I don't know. Anyways, hit the share button, post your comments. I'm Ari Temkin with 105 Through the Fan, also with Phantom, the New World Order of Sports Media. And thank you to everybody who is on this stream. And again, my apologies for having to cut the previous one short, but I had some technical difficulties that I was trying to get through. And that they needed to use the space that I was in, so had to move out here and out of the field, which looks better. Mark Martins says hello on the Dallas Cowboys America's Team page. What's going on, Mark? How are you? Anybody, can you let me know how the stream is holding up here? How is the internet holding up here on my stream? Is it good? Is it buffering? Is it high quality? Is it lagging? I hate to ask you, but I'd like to ask you as opposed to just going live this whole time, not knowing that if it is or is not lagging pretty bad. Andy Kai says California dreaming on such a sunny day. They are tending to the field behind me. Hopefully I'm not in the way, as I just was. Am I in the way? Thank you. Just want to make sure I wasn't in his way. Audio good, video lagging. Seriously? I'm plugged into the Ethernet here. This is so disconcerting. Because yesterday I just had my thank you, Andy. Yesterday I just had my phone, and that seemed to be of higher quality. Just going live from my phone, which then isn't as conducive to adding the production elements and all this other stuff that we're seeing here. So, at any rate, post your questions. What do you want to know about the Cowboys? And you know what I saw yesterday. Yesterday was my first day of practice. Today's their off day, so there will be no practice today. So. No evening show tonight here on Phantom. However, I will have evening shows around 9 o'clock Central tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday after their evening practices. So around about 9 o'clock. So I'll be doing my normal showtime every day at noon Central, and then about 9 o'clock Central I'll do that post-practice stream where I can just rapid-fire answer your questions, whatever you want to know, those kinds of things. So that's what's going on for the rest of the week here. By the way, hit the share button. Everybody do that, please. Hit the share button because sharing is caring. Esteban Moreno says, audio is on point, video is breaking up. Well, so should I keep with this or should I just go to my phone and just say F it and just do it off my phone since yesterday was good? Keith Page says bad. Well, Keith, I'm trying, okay? Randy Lilly wants to know how the confidence is of the team. Confidence is always high. I mean, what are you talking about training camp? And particularly the beginning of training camp. I mean, it's a lot of, we're just learning the playbook and we're excited and happy to have I mean, everybody's confident at the beginning of training camp. And if you had a lack of confidence at training camp, you've got major problems at this part of the season. So the Brown versus Lewis battle. Angela Rudd wants to know how I'm doing. Thank you, Angela. How are you? I'm doing well, thank you. How's the Brown-Lewis battle? So the interesting thing about that is, in my opinion, Lewis is ahead of Brown, but yet Brown is ahead of Lewis on the depth chart. Lewis, but I do sort of have a little bit of understanding of what they're trying to do, which is, they're basically lining up. So Chidobe is basically their number one corner, and he's the guy that they're lining up, against the best receiver. And I think they're doing the same thing with Lewis with second team. So whereas Anthony Brown's more of their nickel corner, I think they're working in Lewis as more of the, matched up against the number one kind of guy, which is, also what we're seeing with Leighton Vander Esch. But Mike Fisher, Cowboys Insider 105 through the Fan, he's certainly questioning why, how can you have a first-round draft pick that's not already in the starting lineup, opposite Jalen Smith at this point, because the Cowboys, most of their, their first team sets are with two linebackers, and Leighton Vander Esch is kind of in that same position when it comes to first team, second team, where they've got Leighton Vander Esch on that second team, sort of like Jordan Lewis. So it's a good question. I think Lewis is the better corner. I think he's got more upside. I think Lewis is going to be a star. I think Chidobe Awuzie and Jordan Lewis are absolute stars. So, I'm with you on how is he not higher in the depth chart than Anthony Brown, but maybe it's because they're trying to work him in against, teams' number one wide receivers. Daniel Smalley wants to know how Randy Gregory's looking. Couldn't tell you because he's not been practicing yet. Sean Lee and DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory are not practicing with the team right now. So, I mean, they're just basically on the side wearing jerseys. So, I mean, he looks good. He looks like he's in good shape. But, I mean, I think the fact that he's here, guys, he's with the team, he's available to play and practice, like that's an amazing sign. I think by the end of this week, I'd be surprised if, we get to Thursday practice, because they won't practice on Friday. So they'll do, so they had Friday, Saturday, Sunday practice, Monday off today. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice, Friday off. So I'd be surprised if we got to the end of, the second, I don't know if he'll practice tomorrow, but by Wednesday, Thursday, if Randy Gregory's out there in pads, I'd be surprised. Angela Rudd says, how's Beasley doing? Can't wait to see him. That's a great question. Beasley he's their number one receiver so far, and he's been the best so far. If you watched my post-practice stream last night, I talked a lot about this, but they're doing a lot of 10 personnel, which is, again, when you talk about 21 or 12, that is basically the first number is running back, second number is tight ends. So 10 personnel means one running back, no tight ends, which means you've got four wideouts. When they do that, you've got Allen Hurns on the outside, Beasley on the slot, then Tavon Austin on the other slot, and then Gallup on the outside or T. Will on the outside. But then they're also flip-flopping. I mean, you'll have Hurns on the inside, Beasley on the outside. So, again, we've heard a lot about the creativity of this team, and and the lack of creativity and ingenuity, the play calling in the past. But Linehan and Jason Garrett have talked a lot about having more ingenuity, having more creativity on the offensive play calling. And so we've seen that so far where, they've got a lot of guys that are multifaceted. Beasley, Allen Hurns, Tavon Austin can do a lot of different things. So, I expect to see more creativity, and that continue where you're going to see guys, especially Beasley, who's really important, sort of lining up on the inside, lining up on the outside, that kind of thing. All right, let's see. I'm trying to get to all the comments on all the different pages, so just keep posting, and I'll get to them eventually, whether you're watching on Phantom at facebook.com/Watch Phantom, whether you're watching on the Dallas Cowboys America's Team page, or Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, Big Gabe James, Dallas Prospect, all of our pages. Darius Coy says it's better. That's awesome. Okoye Media. What up, Okoye? What's up, brother? How are you, man? The tractor in the background, how Cowboys of you. Yeah, they are tending to the field. Because the field is wet. Like, I got this chair to sit on for the stream, and I opened the chair up, and it was like it got water all over me, so it was kind of funny. But what do you guys want to know about training camp so far? Yesterday was my first day of practice. Again, sort of my observations from my first practice being here was that the defense is ahead of the offense. The offense was out of sync. Dak was missing guys. Cooper Rush was missing guys. Mike White was missing guys. Receivers were missing balls. I think it was Michael Gallup's worst practice. He was dropping left and right. Even after practice, he was basically like, I was very unhappy with how I practiced. I'm not, look, no drastic conclusions to any capacity about that, but that was my observation. The defense was ahead of the offense. We also saw Jordan Lewis is mouthy, and I like it. I like his attitude. He was getting after Lance Lenoir yesterday, and I think Lenoir was a little disparaged by it, a little discouraged by it. We also saw Lyle Collins basically, to a man, just take advantage of Taco Charlton, which is not a good thing to see. And then they kind of fought a little bit and got after each other, but Lyle Collins basically dominated Taco Charlton. And we saw for the most part the offensive line. They do those one-on-one hand drills. Hand combat drills, and that's the most exciting drill you're going to see out in training camp, especially early training camp, because it's when they get after each other. It's basically, you line up offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and get after it. Pass rusher versus offensive lineman, interior lineman versus interior offensive lineman, and they just get after it. It's the most physical drill you're going to see in early going of training camp, and that's, you say fights, and you're going to see fights because it's the byproduct of, a lot of aggression and finally being able to go after each other, and so it was fun yesterday to see that, and the offensive line in that way manhandled the defensive line. So in one way, it's 7-on-7s. The defense handled the offense pretty well, and the offense was out of sync. But when you look at those hand-to-hand combat, I forget what they call that drill, but offensive line versus defensive line, the offensive line was ahead of the defensive line in that capacity. Christian Lewis and Warren Merle are asking about of Dak Prescott so far. Again, yesterday was my first day of practice, so I was not here for Friday or Saturday's practices. So I can only tell you what I saw based on yesterday's practice, and that was that Dak looked off, the quarterbacks looked off, and so did the receivers. They looked out of sync. Receivers were dropping passes, they were underthrowing balls, just not fluid, not on track. And that's, a credit to the defense. The corners played well in 7-on-7s yesterday, but also probably attributable to, it's early going. It's the first couple of days with pads on. So, offense is going to come after defense. Keith Batchelor says, "What up, man? How are you, Keith?" Is Batchelor your real last name? That's an interesting last name. How is Austin looking so far? Tavon looks good. So some observations about Tavon. He's a much better leader than I ever thought he was. And not to say I thought he was a bad leader, but you just see him, if there's a big play that's made by an offensive player, he's the first guy out there, even if it's the fourth string. Dalton Sturm made a good throw as the fourth string quarterback, and, Tavon Austin's the first guy out there to congratulate and to kind of, pump him up. So, Tavon, one of the things I didn't really know about is that leadership, and, it's there. And I also, so those are some of the kinds of things you're looking for, like who's asserting themselves when it comes to leadership and, and being boisterous and, that kind of thing. And we're definitely seeing that from Tavon Austin. And again, Cowboys fans have been asking for creativity on offense. It was one of the big criticisms of Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan, especially last year, this lack of creativity. We're seeing it so far in training camp, and they have seemingly the personnel to be more creative. So I think that's important too. Let's see here. Patrick Prescott says under 7 yards probably looks great. You're talking about Dak? How can a guy with the last name Prescott be down on Dak? It's your cousin, right? All right, let me just check in on all the pages. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm Ari Temkin with 105 Through the Fed. I'm going to be the Cowboys' new pre- and post-game host, and also on 105 Through the Fan. But I'm also streaming live on Phantom, the New World Order of Sports Media. You can check us out on the Phantom page, also on the Dallas Prospect, Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, the Dallas Cowboys America's Team page, America's Team's in quotes, and the Dallas Cowboys Report. So go check us out all there as well. Donnie Wadoops says, would Antonio Brown and Dez work on the same team for Pittsburgh? Sure. I don't see why not. I'll say this. Dez will end up signing with either New Orleans or Cleveland. So I don't think he's going to sign with the Steelers. I think he'll end up signing with New Orleans, and that's, I think, the rumors certainly made sense throughout most of training camp. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dez signed the next couple of weeks, and it'll probably be either with the Cleveland Browns or the New Orleans Saints. Joe Deasy says, nice you're back. Yeah, sorry about that. Actually, I'll tell you what happened. It was Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com was doing a radio interview with the G-Bag Nation at 105 to the Fan, and I was kind of in the middle of their area, so I didn't want to get in the way. Plus, it's better to have the field behind me as a better backdrop. So I'll be doing it from the field every day now. And hopefully the stream, this might be the last day I'm using my computer for the stream. I'll just say that. Because it doesn't look like the stream's holding up extremely well at all. Hit the share button. Post your comments. I'll be taking your questions, your comments, your thoughts on what I've seen so far from Cowboys training camp. Let's see here. Angela Rudd says, do they practice rain or shine? Yes, but I'll say this. It doesn't really rain out here. That's sort of the MO of Southern California, especially, Oxnard. You can go to Southern California, get kind of away from the beach, but Oxnard, California is on the ocean, which means you get that great ocean breeze, which means, it gets a little bit hot during the day when the sun's out, but you get that nice ocean breeze in the morning and night. So it's it's legitimate like pants, sweatshirt weather in the evening here in Oxnard, California. The Dolce Vita Tequila House that we're staying at with 105 for the Fan is like on Ocean Drive, which is basically on the ocean, so it's even extra cold out there. But yeah, they practice rain or shine, but for the most part, it's all shine here. Not much rain here at all. Angela says you're doing a great job. I appreciate you saying that, Angela. Raider Mike Sanny says, what up? What's good, man? Shout out to my dad, J.R. Sanny. He's a big fan of the Cowboys. My brother, Austin Sanny, too much love. So how'd you become a Raiders fan that bad? Get on board with America's team. George Holland. Is that Holland? George Holland? One small L, one big L? Is that right? George Holland wants to know who's going to be the number one wide receiver. So my guess is Cole Beasley. My guess is Cole Beasley. But it kind of depends on what you mean by that as far as number one, because I think Michael Gallup is going to be their deep threat. Allen Hurns will be used a little bit as a deep threat. But as far as guys that on a 3rd and 8 when you need a catch, Cole Beasley. I think Cole Beasley will lead the team in targets. I think he'll lead the team in yards. He's going to be their number one. Cowboys Nation says check out Cowboys Nation page. Okay, I will, brother. In fact, Cowboys Nation, if you'd like, send me a message, and we can also stream this through your page as well. We could set that up. So appreciate you checking out the stream, man. I'll be here throughout training camp the entire time. I do my show every day at noon Central, showtime. That's what this is. And then I'm going to be doing post-practice streams. So the Cowboys every day they do their walkthrough in the morning, that's a practice. It's closed to the public. It's not much. But that's showtime will be sort of post-walkthrough practice every day. And then they do that evening practice, which starts at about 4 o'clock Pacific time, so about 6 o'clock Central. And then, they practice. That's their 7-on-7. That's their big practice that's open to the public that people are out here for. So then I'll be doing a post-practice stream every day. There's no practice today. Today's their off day, so I'll be doing a post-practice stream every day tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, because with the new CBA, when you put the pads on, you practice for 3 days, day off, 3 days, day off. So today's their day off after practicing Friday and Saturday, off Sunday, today, or rather Friday, Saturday, Sunday, off today, Monday, and then practicing again tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, off day Friday. So I'll be doing those post-practice streams right here on all these pages. Phantom, Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys Report, Dallas Cowboys America's Team, Dallas Prospect, Big Game James, Silver and Blue Nation, Law Nation, all of our great partners here with Phantom. Angela Rudd says, I live in Tucson. It's been 102. Yeah, 108 to 110. Yeah, and Dallas, if you live in Dallas or Texas, it's been that hot too. The difference between Tucson and Texas at this point of the year is humidity versus dry heat. But I don't think one's better than the other. It's just the difference. Andrew Martinez says, so then Cole will remain number one, but they may change the C's with this new talent. It's exciting. Yeah, no, I think, the number one takeaway so far from training camp the first few days is, in my first practice, is they're multiple, and that was the knock, right, is, they had Dez, and Dez can only do so many things, and so because of that, it sort of had this domino effect on everybody else. Now they got rid of Dez, they brought in Hurns. Hurns throughout his course of his career has been a slot guy, but he's also played on the outside. So, as far as who plays, in football terms, the X, the Y, and the Z, that's going to fluctuate and change based on the personnel they have, which is really cool. So, yeah, Cowboys fans that have been complaining about the lack of creativity with their offense, we're going to see that this year. So, and look, I've been on the record saying I think the Cowboys are going to be good this year because their offensive line is really good and their running back is really good. And when you have those two things, you have the ingredients to being a top 5 offense, which they were a couple of years ago. But they're going to need their wide receivers to play a pretty big role in their success this year because, look, you could win some games when teams stack the box, as it were, and load up to stop the run, but you're not going to win, 10 games to get to the playoffs like that. You're going to have to keep defenses honest at some point. You just cannot be a one-dimensional, run-the-ball 75% of the time kind of offense. I don't foresee them doing that. I'm just saying, that certainly is one of the criticisms or the worries about Cowboys fans, because they don't have, a Dez, a legit outside threat. But, somebody's going to have to break free, and I think that's Cole Beasley this year. Henry Gallardo says, hey, brother, my question is how are we looking health-wise on both sides of the ball? We'll be having everyone good to go. Yeah, I mean, look, it's early in training camp. Everybody looks good. Sean Lee hasn't practiced yet. It's funny, I talked with Mike Fisher for 105 through the Fan. We're at the same house, and he was saying, I was like, when's Sean Lee going to practice? When's DeMarcus Lawrence going to practice? He was basically like, why would you practice those guys? What's the point, right? I mean, especially Sean Lee. And Tyrod Smith has been practicing, but especially Tyrod Smith. Like, what's the point in practicing with those guys considering the health concerns you have with them? So, you know, I think that's fair. You know, Sean Lee has such an understated importance with this team because of what he does from a leadership standpoint on defense. And when he goes out, they just don't have a guy that fills that void. I think, you know, Leighton Vander Esch, I'm excited about him because I think he can help fill the void from on the field what Sean Lee does, you know, as far as football is concerned. But leadership, that's something that they're going to need to figure it out and find out where that's going to come from. Is it Jordan Lewis? You know, is it, you know, again, and that's if Sean Lee doesn't stay healthy this year. Chris Bennett says, where's Jera? By the way, Chris, did you notice in John Dyer? John Dyer says, when you see ESPN San Antonio guys, do you big time them, pretend you don't know them? No, I saw Jason yesterday. We talked, had a good discussion. Joe Deasy said, so you don't get kicked out of Spag Spot. Yeah, I got kicked out of Spag Spot. I kicked myself out of Spag Spot. Murphy Pack in the house. What up, Murphy? What up, Murph? How are you, buddy? California's amazing. Yeah, it is perfect this time of year. Like, it is the fact that I'm outside and like actually enjoying myself and not like wanting to die because I'm melting. Like, that's a great sign. By the way, Murphy Pack is with does a fantastic job. So go check out Murphy Pack because he does great work. Let's see here. Cole had one big year. The defense's game plan for him, and look what happened. And with no Witt. So you're concerned, Joe, about the role Cole's going to play? Yeah, I mean, that's right. He had a big year a couple of years ago when the Cowboys were, you know, a playoff team and really, really good. Top 5 in offense. And last year, teams bailed out to stop him. And he wasn't as successful. So, you know, I think it's a different story this year for a lot of different reasons. You know, because, you know, if you stop Beasley, the idea being then they can utilize, you know, first of all, Beasley's going to travel. So, you know, he's going to play on the outside. He's going to play on the inside. Plus, I think they look at and say, you're not going to be able to stop any one guy because if you do, then we can utilize other guys that can potentially beat you. Tavon Austin, you know, Alan Hearns, and because these guys are all so multiple. Yeah, feel free to move whatever you guys need. Yeah, go ahead. Move it out of the way, man. I don't want to be in your way. Absolutely. All right, so what else we got? John Dyer says it would be hilarious if offensive guru Sean McVay couldn't utilize Tavon Austin, but Jason Garrett does. Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't look at it as that black and white. I mean, I think there's a lot of different factors that would go into that, you know, as far as McVay comes in and design the offense around Gurley. You know, plus they had some pretty decent wideouts. So, I you know, plus I think at that point Austin had kind of, you know, worn out his welcome in a sense from the Rams because, you know, he was such a high pick and he was such a disappointment. So, you know, I don't know that I would just – I think it's a completely different scheme. You know, the Cowboys, as opposed to having a number one wideout like, you know, the LA Rams probably had last year, I think they look at it as sort of like a collective, you know, where they've got a bunch of guys that can all basically play similar the same roles. And so that's what I expect to see this year. All right, let's see. Checking on the Law Nation page. No comments on the Law Nation. Just kind of trying to go through all the pages here before we get out. But a reminder, I'm going to be streaming live every day at 12 o'clock Central. So if you're new to this, I'll be out here every day, noon Central, and then post-practice, I'll be doing Q&A sessions as well, kind of like this, Q&A sessions as well, post-practice at about 9 Central, 9:15 Central. So just kind of stay tuned on all the pages that you're watching on for updates on when exactly I'll be going live. But I'll be going live post-practice as well. All right, let's see here. On the Silver and Blue Nation page, let's see here. Cowboys will always rule. This team looks a lot faster as a whole. Yeah, I agreed. A lot of team speed here, no question about that. Especially at the wideout position. But yeah, I mean they're young. I mean, this is a very young football team. You look at the oldest player on offense is Tyrod Smith. The oldest player on defense is Sean Lee. This is a very young football team. So I think there's some excitement from that standpoint. And you know, look, I mean, I think this team was designed, you know, this whole offseason, everybody's been talking about Dak friendly, making the offense more. To me, it's Garrett friendly. I mean, you look at the turnover that they've had with this franchise, with this team over the last couple of years, especially relative to, the players that they had, and age, and I mean they've turned it over and they've just gone really young. And I think when you look at Jason Garrett as a coach, he's more of a rah-rah, sort of fire you up kind of motivational guy. That seems more conducive to younger players. So I think, when they say Dak friendly, I think it's more Garrett friendly in many ways. All right, let's see here. Cam Kelly. Cam Kelly looks good. I think he had a pick yesterday, which people are excited about. Paul Padilla says, we as Cowboy fans can't take another bad season. Do you think Garrett's job is on the line, even though Jerry said no? Yeah, I do. And I know Jerry said no. I mean, Jerry made this statement about standing during the national anthem and there's going to be suspensions, and then like 2 days later, told a bunch of TV guys, don't ask about the anthem, because the NFL basically neutered him when it comes to the anthem stuff. So what I'm saying is Jerry says things at the Cowboys State of the Union address that he then walks back a few days later. So I just don't understand. I don't see in any way how Garrett can survive another season not making the playoffs. I just, like Paul, I think from your standpoint, from fan standpoints, they're sick and tired of the talent on this roster not overcoming some of the the different components of just some of the different components of adversity that they face, right? Like, we just watched an Eagles team that faced a ton of adversity over the course of the year, lost their quarterback, lost their left tackle, lost their middle linebacker, and they still won a Super Bowl. So I think Cowboys fans look at this and be like, stop with the damn excuses. It's enough of the excuses. Go out there and perform at a high level, and and don't blame everything and everybody. And look, I just don't. I think Jerry wants Jason Garrett to be successful, but I just don't understand how Jason can survive another lost season. Let's see. I'll answer a few more questions, then I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully this stream held up a little bit throughout. I think today's my last day I'm going to do any of these streams from my computer. I've just not had any consistency from the internet on my computer, so I apologize for that, everybody. Yesterday the stream was flawless from my phone using the LTE network I have out here, so we'll just have to make do with that moving forward. Let's see here. Warren Merle says maybe if we can get Dak off the commercials to play some ball, we could win a few. But yeah, I mean, Peyton Manning did a bunch of commercials. How did he play? I don't think commercials are the problem. First of all, they filmed the majority of those commercials during the offseason. Dak's problem last year, guys, was Tyron Smith's health. That's the big. You want to know the biggest factor for the Cowboys to be successful this year is not if Tyron Smith can stay healthy, because the answer to that question is he's not going to be able to stay healthy, guys. He's got a bad back and he's only getting older. Those don't get better over time. So the question is, can he stay healthy enough to play in 16 games? And if he can't, can Cam Fleming come in and do a more adequate job than Chaz Green? Because that was what derailed Dak Prescott last year, guys. All right, I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you all for being a part of today's stream. Sorry it was a two-parter, but hopefully Joe Deasy says I'll answer Joe Deasy's question before I get up out of here. So let's get Garrett fired. Who do you bring in? I've said. Look, I think with the wave of the NFL, you got a bunch of young guys that are, that are smart, creative, outside-the-box thinkers, especially on offense. I mean, look at, you've got Sean McVay and now Matt Nagy, and so the guy that I like is Lincoln Riley. When you think of outside-the-box, innovative offensive thinkers, I think of Lincoln Riley. Now, I said that on the fan, and people on the
Is this? Oh no, my microphone's good. Sorry, I was hearing something in my ear that made it sound weird. Anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. What was I? I was finishing up on the Lincoln Riley. People thought I was crazy. Like I'd said, Jeff Fisher should be the next coach of the Cowboys. But I mean, I would never say that. That's crazy. All right, thank you all again for joining us. I'm Ari Temkin. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Ari Sports, ARI Sports. Make sure to follow the page Phantom, Facebook.com/Watch Phantom, spelled down below the fold here. There. Noon o'clock with TJ Carpenter's coming up.
Design. I don't think it's going to be players. And my contention has never been that the players, other than quarterback, that the Broncos have are bad. Actually, offensive line and, tight end, too. I don't if you have a tight end. Running back's not great either. But generally speaking, I think the talent on the roster is good. The talent on the roster is good enough to be at least 500. My problem here is Vance Joseph's brain. I do not think that Vance Joseph is qualified to be a head coach in the NFL. I think that last year was pretty much all Exhibit A, everything. I'm not telling you something you don't know. I think I saw somewhere earlier today, Vance Joseph has been called out. Oh, we got to get to this. I saw on social media earlier today that Woody Page was on Altitude, and he's telling Scott Hastings, woo pig suey, he was telling Scott Hastings that he thinks that Vance Joseph's going to get fired after the 49ers game. And, I mean, stealing my takes? I mean, Woody Page? Come on, Woody. You're just trying to steal my takes? And don't give me this I don't know who you are crap. You were following me on Twitter for quite some time, Woody. Broncos fans are smarter than people give them credit for. I think they're smarter than the average NFL fan, and they kind of they're quiet about it a little bit, but they all kind of know whether or not the team's going to be any good, and they can tell. I think people last year, it was a little bit of a surprise to them. It wasn't a surprise to me. I've nailed this team since I got here. I knew exactly how bad they were going to be, and they were, and the reasons why were exactly the reasons why, and now all of a sudden everybody's like speaking my language, criticizing John Elway and saying, hey, I think you're screwing up the team, John. I think you maybe need to do something a little different there. Because they want people to be excited. They're really pushing product right now. Like a used car salesman. They have shined up their Vance Joseph, and they are pushing that out onto the showroom floor. Like, come on, guys, let's move some units. Let's see what we can do today. Let's hit a quota. They are really pushing product right now. The Broncos know what's coming. I think this is an indication. It's a big, bright sign that says we're not going to be good this year. And I know that there's hope. We've talked about this before. There's teams you trust in, there's teams you hope in, and the Broncos are a team that we're hoping are going to be good. But we have no trust or belief in them to do that. So that's fine. I'm just saying that 1650 just screams, please, let's not have empty seats. If an NFL team is selling their product for less than $75 a ticket, I kind of question what's going on. What, people not going to games? What's your strategy here? You're trying to find your price point. Because there are a lot of, it doesn't matter what the price is in New England. They're going to drive out into the wilderness. Have you ever been to Gillette Stadium? It is in the middle of nowhere. And they're just like, I don't know, like drones, like bees heading out towards, it's mindless. They all go out there and they just pay hundreds of dollars to watch Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and then beat off for 3.5 hours. That's not what the situation is in Denver right now. That you guys are not zombies to the Broncos right now. And I applaud 1650. I think that's good for fans. I really like that people are looking at that and saying, okay, hey, maybe it's attainable. I can go to a Broncos game this year. That's good. And I think it's good that the organization really pays attention to the fans that way. I just think that it also means that they can't sell them for more because they absolutely would if they could. So this is the last week that we really have without any football. Next weekend, we got football, right? We got the Hall of Fame game coming up. T.O. isn't going to be mentioned at all. We'll see how that goes. But I really want people to focus in here on what I'm trying to tell you about Denver. The Broncos are going to have good players. Shane Ray's going to be healthy. I think that's not necessarily a given, but I think it's as close to. I'm really optimistic about Shane Ray because typically, when a guy gets hurt like that, spends a year off, usually they come back and they're in pretty good shape. So I think Shane Ray is going to come back and he's going to be really, really good. I'm in on Derek Wolfe's neck. I think the neck is going to be good. Derek Wolfe's already had some really great comments. He's also got dreads, which, as we all know, that adds like 3 or 4 points onto your speed in Madden. So clearly, I think Derek Wolfe's going to be a faster, leaner Derek Wolfe. It's going to be probably a little bit crazier. I think dreads also make you crazier. I think that's obviously always true. He's going to look a little bit like a very large predator. And I think that having that on the defensive line is really going to help you. Brent, training camp is free. You just have to walk through their T-shirt store 7 times to get to the field. That's right. And look, they move some product in Broncos country. They really do. Everybody in this town has something that's orange and blue.
Hey guys, Benjamin Albright, NFL Underground. I want to talk to you today about the Phantom Football Forum. Designed to give you greater access to me. You get the latest intel, insider information, rumors, news notes, injury information, Vegas lines, fantasy football, power rankings. Watch football games live with me. Phantom Football Forum. Only $1 for your first month if you sign up today. Facebook.com/WatchPhantom. The link right here. Come join us today.
Hey everybody, welcome to Noon O'Clock. I'm TJ Carpenter right here on Phantom. As you can see, we are in a different location today. We're out here at Broncos training camp. And behind us is the Mile High Sports logo. That's the radio station I work for. You can listen to us 7 to 9, Monday through Friday. Myself, Nate Lundy, Sean Drotar. Sitting next to me is our own NFL expert, NFL insider, Phantom Football Forum's own Benjamin Albright. Ben, we're going to talk quite a bit about what we saw today. Garrett Bowles went off the field with some concussion. They just want to be safe to make sure. I'm sure we'll find out a little bit more about the concussion situation with Garrett Bowles here in a few minutes. But we're live out here at Broncos training camp. So for everybody who wants to ask a question about Broncos training camp, we will have those questions answered for you all throughout the show. First and foremost, though, before we get to any of that, I always want to remind everybody, if you're looking for a house in Denver, go to Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. Brent is one of the best in the business, the best in the market. And I can speak, this guy right next to me also lives in Parker, one of the best suburbs of Denver. That's where we were able to find a house. We were able to do so at the best possible price, and a lot of that is thanks to Brent Malia. So go check out Brent Malia at Coldwell Banker. And, of course, as always, if you're looking for a mortgage or help with your mortgage, buying, selling, refinancing, doesn't matter. Go to PlatteRiverMortgage.com. Sean said he will hook you up. We had some glitches with our credit we didn't even know about. He fixed those, fixed them on a deadline, got us in at the best possible rate. Absolutely could not have been happier with Brent and Sean in the work they do. So if you're looking for a house in Denver, Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker, TJsagent.com. And if you're looking for help with your mortgage, PlatteRiverMortgage.com.
Yeah, they got you to that exclusive Carpenter Estates neighborhood there. It's a gated community inside of a gated community.
That's right.
So, if you ever want to visit TJ, you got to go through like 2 gate guards. It's weird.
That's right.
I got to call ahead and make an appointment.
You got to protect the assets of the city, and I am one of those assets, apparently.
Makes sense.
They're just protecting me. Okay, so first of all, let's check in on the comments. We got a lot of people who are joining the broadcast already. Wade, what's up, Wade? I know you missed the show on Friday. Ari's show is technically challenged. That's right. I've been trying to tell Ari how to set his stuff up. Ari's too old. I don't understand Ari's problem. Ari's only like 33, and yet his understanding of technology is that of an 80-year-old man.
Yeah, and I would not use the term technically challenged. Ari is just challenged. We don't have to put a modifier on it.
Well, he is a Cowboys fan. So, actually, no, I take that back. He is maybe an amalgam of the 2 worst fan bases, Cowboys and then Bears.
Florida State? Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, Florida State. I can't really debate that. Florida State fans are pretty terrible. They're really awful.
Awful people.
Andy says, I think Ari was running through some technical difficulties today. Yeah, he was. Brent isn't a monarchist, but is still the king of Denver. Yes, he is. Brent Malia, king of Denver. Wait, I only had half the show on Thursday. All right, let's get through these. Yikes, audio is pitchy. Is the audio not, are we maybe a little? Let us know if the audio has an issue, and we will continue. We'll continue to fix that. Maybe just pot us down a little bit over there, Ben. Just bring those. I'm gonna reach over here.
There you go.
Let's see. That's a little bit better? Yep, absolutely. All right, that's gonna
that's
gonna fix
really
things
loud
for
in
us.
my ears.
Yeah, is that too loud? Sorry. Got it fixed. Is that better? All right. Okay.
That can let us know.
I remembered last season, this was a really, really big, important point for me, was that from day one, we interviewed Vance Joseph on the radio day one of training camp last year, and he said something that really bothered me. It was, and I liked it because he's an honest guy, and he's an honest guy. We're going to play an interview we did with him earlier in the day later on, but last year, he's like, I don't even know where to stand, guys. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to be doing. It's one of those Ricky Bobby things. I don't know what to do with my hands. And you could tell when you started watching them practice, you're like, I'm not entirely sure they know how to practice. Night and day difference this year. They clearly have, whatever their issues were in practice, they have figured those out. And now, at least they're starting off from a place of like, okay, I understand what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, there's definitely more of a sense of urgency. I think that the coaching and the coaching staff understands. They've got the experience now of a year because there were no head coaches on the staff. The only head coach you had on the staff was Mike McCoy, and he wasn't interested in coaching. He was trying to get another job.
Right.
I think now you've got guys that want to be here, and they understand they have a sense of urgency in the sense that if they don't get it done this year, they're not going to be here. So they understand that coaching is about time management. You have a limited amount of practice time by union rules, and so you have to get all that in under the wire. And it was something that we commented on last year was the difference in in wasted time between Gary Kubiak practice and Vance Joseph practice as well. That margin has slimmed. They're out there. They're quick. They're crisp. They're trying to get from drill to drill. There's not a lot of loafing, stuff going on like there was last year.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I think that it certainly shows a maturation of this coaching staff, and hopefully that will translate forward onto the field.
I asked Vance about Aqib Talib and his absence and who's going to replace some of that leadership, some of that, because there's kind of a power vacuum on defense when it comes to the rah-rah guy, the guy who's going to hold others accountable verbally. You mess up in practice, he's going to yell at you. That kind of player. And that was Aqib Talib, because Aqib Talib had no problem telling you what he thought of you. And now that I think Chris Harris might be that guy. If you had to pick somebody on that defense who's going to fill that role, who would it be?
Well, ideally you'd want a Von Miller, a guy that you want a star to step up. Chris maybe is going to be that guy. I think Darian Stewart's got a little bit of that to him too. You need somebody with the credibility of being able to be a consistent starter or star in the league, as well as having the vocal presence to be able to do that. Aqib was a work hard, play hard kind of guy. He played very hard off the field, but when he was on it, it was all business. And so, in between chain snatching. So I think that a guy like Chris is the ideal guy to step up. A Brandon Marshall type, guy to step up. Derek Wolfe, we saw him be more vocal in his comments the last couple of days. So, I think those guys stepping up, I think that's a good thing.
And also, too, I've heard a lot of people mention this about the Broncos in general, that they all seem to be a little bit more comfortable criticizing their teammates. That just kind of blatantly, openly saying, yeah, hey, we weren't that good last year, or so-and-so didn't really pull their weight. And to be honest with you, that's maybe the most encouraging thing I've heard out of Broncos camp or the Broncos organization in a long time. Because there's a big echo chamber problem, or at least there has been the last couple of years in this organization.
If you can't identify and correct weakness if you're unwilling to discuss it. You can't. That's why I've always told people, like, if they ever have a criticism of the way that I do things or things like that, point it out to me. I can take it. Plus, it's an area for me to improve.
Right.
And so that's with losses. That should be the thing. Those are your wins in a loss. Okay, this is why we lost. How do we fix that? Those are your wins in a loss. And I think Vance he mentioned a book he'd read on leadership over the course of the summer, which I happen to know echoes that point. So I think that. I think that's a good thing. I think that, understanding that it's okay to say, hey, well, Garrett, and I'm saying purely hypothetical, it's not a quote, a little slow on his kick slide. So what we're doing is we're working on, and the pass rushers are noticing these things. Defense help the offense help the defense, instead of just being mad at the other unit. And I think that helps everybody.
Wade says, Luigi and Pit Stop approve of this ad. I don't know what that means. Ryan said, is that a click and clack reference? I don't know what that is. Ryan says, it's a great practice, results in poor game day execution. Then I'm hoping for some really terrible practices this year. Look, I think they were kind of full of BS last year. Whenever they talked to the media, and when we heard Vance Joseph say, oh, Wednesday, great practice on Wednesday. And you just take that with like, okay, Vance, just, we know you suck. We know that the team's not that good this year. You don't need to try to sell us on the Broncos. Clearly, they can come off a 5-11 season and sell out their regular season general admission tickets in 12 minutes. Clearly, the fans are on board with you. I just think that hearing guys say, "Look, we're honest with ourselves about where we're at," that's good. That's great.
Should be. You're a 5-win team last year. You have to be. I mean, I think that the last couple of years, this team was riding high off the Super Bowl buzz. That Super Bowl is distant memory. You can't see it in the rear view anymore now. It's so far behind you. So you can't coast by any longer, on that glory. And so now this is, you're not a Super Bowl, you're not a recent Super Bowl winner anymore. Yeah. You're a 5-win team that was in the gutter of the AFC West. It's time to get it together. And so I think that you have to do it. You have to look in the mirror, take some hard truths, look at some cold, hard reality, and try to move forward from there, because the last thing you want to do is become a laughing stock.
Zach asks, do you credit Vance Joseph for the change? I don't know.
The buck stops there either way. I know people are going to, in this town, they're going to credit Elway for all that stuff. And that's not to say that he doesn't deserve his fair share of that or whatever. But, I think that if you're going to disparage the head coach for the 5-loss season, then you got to give him credit for the turnaround and the attitude going forward, because he's the guy who sets the tone. He's the day-to-day leader on interaction as far as that goes. So I think that you have to credit him some for that. There are people that in this town that are convinced that if you give Vance Joseph any kind of credit, that's that you're an idiot, and I don't think that's the right way. The truth is a funny thing. There's 3 sides to every story: his, hers, and the truth.
Yes, and look, I think that that's a good point, because I think Vance Joseph deserves credit if the team makes this huge turnaround.
I think so too. I mean, he's the leader. He's the captain.
Absolutely.
He's the general,
Absolutely. I would say to this point, my assessment of Vance Joseph is that that's not going to happen. That
we'll see.
This is encouraging to see that
you give credit to the leadership. I mean, to be fair, we all talk about Norman Schwarzkopf winning, Desert Storm. We don't talk about the privates and sergeants that were out there that actually did the work, So, I mean, you have to give credit for a culture change there. It's funny in sports, we go the opposite direction. We give the athletes all the credit, which is good because they're the executors. But you have to give the coaching staff credit for change. And I think there's a unified vision here that there wasn't last year. Again, I think there were some toxic presences in this coaching staff last year, and I think those are gone now. Those are excised, and I think that the staff has a unified vision, and we'll see to what end that is able to generate success.
All right, well, Brandon Perna on Twitter on Saturday when they started Broncos training camp said that he predicted somebody would tweet out that Case Keenum and Demaryius Thomas were really clicking. They were looking really good. They were working on their chemistry, and the chemistry was looking good.
Well, that's one of those pablum quotes that he could have just said. He could have blank tweets that people are going to send out, like so and so's in the best shape of their life.
That's right.
It's
sure enough. Our friend Ryan Edwards was the guy to tweet that out. I think he was the first guy to tweet out that DT and Keenum were really hooking up and clicking in practice. Can you? I mean, to be honest with you, where we are situated here as the media, we don't actually get to watch.
There's a wall in between practice.
There's a wall
walk all the way around.
Yeah.
I thought they did. I thought that they were working on it. The first day for them was kind of rough. Day 2, they started getting it together. And of course, today's day 3. I think day 1, Emmanuel Sanders really kind of had that connection. Deshaun Hamilton has really had that connection with Case Keenum. It's going to take a while. I think what we're getting is almost a paralysis by overanalysis. You get people that are so invested in 2 days of practice that they come by, they create and sculpt these narratives that aren't necessarily reality. And you've got to let that stuff play out. I think you got to have patience. I understand we all want the information. We've been months without it. It's been out of the playoffs and all that. But at the same time, what we need to do is maybe create soft narratives instead of hard ones. Like, well, so and so had a good day today. Let's see how that carries forward and go from there. Demaryius and Case are trying to get on the same page. Talk to me after they've played a game together.
Sean Drotar said something to me really interesting. He was here this weekend, and he said he had a stopwatch and he timed the windup and the mechanics of every quarterback. And he said, look, Keenum's clearly the fastest. He's got the fastest release of any quarterback here. That makes sense, obviously. And then he said Chad Kelly was next, and it was pretty close. And then way behind, he said 0.7 of a second, which just sounds like unbelievable to me that it took that long for...
That's the problem. Okay, so I've talked about this before.
Paxton Lynch to get the ball out of him.
Right. Big quarterbacks has been a thing for years, and 25 years ago that was a thing. In the Dan Marino era, being a big quarterback, was kind of a thing because the game was different then. Now being a big, tall quarterback with an extensively long windup is a bad thing because in the modern pass rush era, you've got to get the ball out quickly. You also have a quarterback who's got long legs. That means he has a wider base, which means he's not able to nimbly manipulate the pocket, like a Tom Brady or, in this case, a Case Keenum. You almost want a shorter quarterback. There's a sweet spot in there because those guys can move their feet quicker and manipulate the pocket and buy time. So, as long as you've got the requisite arm strength, you're able to see through the splits and where to throw the football. Height and big arms is, those things are things of the past. Now what you need to concentrate on is a guy who sees the field quickly, is a good processor of the field, makes quick decisions, gets the football out quickly and accurately. That's Case Keenum. That ain't Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, and, we were talking about this, you and me and Sean Drotar, a little bit earlier. I don't think that it's a quarterback development issue necessarily. I think some people would say, oh, well, they're drafting the right people. They're just not developing them properly, and I don't think that's true, at least not in Paxton Lynch's case.
No, I agree with you. I think the Broncos have certain elements of the Broncos have an archaic archetype in what they look for, in the quarterback position. I don't think that's realistic. I think that what you need to do is be looking for a guy that is an efficient facilitator of the football. You don't have to look for the same traits that you were looking for before, which was, again, tall, big arm. This guy just looks like a quarterback, that kind of thing. That's how you wind up with the Josh Allens or the world, the Jamarcus Russells of the world instead of, good quarterbacks.
Okay, so we don't yet have an update on Garrett Bowles.
I do. He was walking under his own power to his locker. He's being evaluated for a concussion.
Okay.
Early results are positive.
All right.
And then Brandon Marshall also has his wrist being looked at. There's nothing definitive yet, but they're going to go over it as a precaution. He, obviously was off on his own power as well.
So Bowles is lucid.
Yes.
And Brandon Marshall is
I would say that tweaked. And I would say that Bowles probably got his bell rung is probably the best way to put that.
Okay. All right.
So he'll be back. Directly. Also, Rios, the corner, a little banged up, and Hireman, a little dinged up. Both those guys made the injury list. So
Ronald Leary was out at camp for the first time on Sunday. He had his knee scoped in the offseason.
Looked good too.
He looked good, and look, not to name names, but there were people in the Denver media, former players actually, who had essentially accused Ronald Leary of being lazy. I mean, just preventing his surgery, putting his surgery off so he didn't have to go to off-season workouts.
That's not the case.
I think it's. I know it's not the case. He had 3 MRIs on his knee, and then finally had it scoped after he was getting conflicting opinions from doctors.
He had conflicting diagnosis, and he wanted to take some time to be patient, make the right decision, for him and his future and that kind of thing. It had nothing to do with being lazy and skipping off-season workouts. Ron Leary's not that guy. I don't know who would fabricate that, but that's kind of disgusting.
Oh, well, I mean, he said it on the air. Alfred Williams on the fan. He said it on the fan.
That's absurd.
I like Al. I like Big Al. I think everybody in town likes Big Al. He's a fun guy to be around. But I think that's a little irresponsible to say. I mean, that's really irresponsible to say that about a player, especially one who you're going to have to rely on in a fairly large capacity this season. So for Garrett Bowles, you gave us an update on his injury situation, and I know that you're going to have to go here pretty quickly, but some thoughts from camp and in particular on that offensive line, because their right side of the line has been a work in progress for the last 7 years.
Well, you got Valdir, who's a road grader out there. I think he's going to give him some toughness on the right side. You've also got Connor McGovern, who's looked pretty good, snapping up that starting role. They're going to rotate Menelik Watson in there just to see what he can do, but McGovern's pretty much got the job locked down. Other thoughts from camp, I would suggest that Deshaun Hamilton has looked very good, last couple of days. A kid out of Penn State. He was drafted behind Cortland Sutton, but I think he's going to end up being the number 3 receiver when all said and done. He's a more technical wide receiver. While Sutton's bigger and a better athlete, Hamilton has been the guy who's consistently made catches. He's got an explosive first step, sinks his hips when he drives into those cuts, so he can make a more explosive cut, whereas Sutton just tries to shield out with that big body. So, I think overall Deshaun Hamilton's going to be a kid that's really going to contribute, especially between the 20s. This year is kind of a chain mover receiver. You'll see Sutton in the red zone just because of his size. You can throw jump balls for him, but I think overall, Royce Freeman, Philip Lindsay, 2 rookie running backs, both look pretty good. Tomorrow we get pads, so I'll really kind of focus on the running backs tomorrow. Case is clearly the quarterback here. There's no question about that. I know there were people talking about Chad Kelly and Paxton, and there's not a hint of that.
Case Keenum is the guy.
Case Keenum is the guy. That is unquestioned. There is nothing else going on there. No competition, none of that. It is Case Keenum. He will be the starter of this team, barring injury. on the defensive side of the football, Bradley Chubb looks as comfortable moving away from the football as he does going downhill after the
that's
passer.
great.
And that's going to be a big thing for them
That's
this
great.
year, is having that versatility and him able to cover. He had an interception day one, couple of batted balls day two. He's an aggressive guy. I really think the Broncos got a steal at 5 there, a position they were in the draft, the position they were looking to trade out of. They had a deal in place with Buffalo to trade out of 5, and then Chubb fell in their lap because there were only 3 players the Broncos were considering at 5: Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Bradley Chubb. If any of the 3 were there, they would take him. If not, they would trade.
What do you think that means for the rotation then at opposite Von Miller?
Well, I think it's a good thing because you got Shane Ray coming back off that wrist. They botched that surgery a couple of times. His wrist has been an issue. You got Shaq Barrett, who's going into a contract year that gives you leverage. And then, of course, you got Von Miller over there as well, so you can give him a breather. So I think from the Broncos, from a front office standpoint, the Bradley Chubb thing is huge. It gives them a lot of leverage in determining the future at a price point that is exorbitant. So I think it'd be good for them. The secondary has been a little suspect, but it always kind of is before you put the pads on. Once you start putting the pads on, secondary tends to kind of start to key in on, what the offense is doing, that kind of stuff. A couple of days in the rotation. So, I think overall it's an exciting football team. You're probably looking at about a 500 football team from what I see here. Maybe a little bit better than that. It just depends on the way the ball bounces. And I would say a team that's probably competing for second in the division.
Second. Wow, that's impressive.
The number 2 or 3 team of the division. It'll be them and KC for number 2.
Man, behind the Chargers.
Yeah.
What's left
of the Chargers once they get through training camp?
So far, Hunter Henry, and who else got hurt recently?
Jason Verrett, but he's always hurt. And then they lost a third-string tight end as well. Jason Verrett's played 24 games in 5 seasons.
So it's going to be Antonio Gates again?
They're talking to Gates about bringing him back. So
yeah. I was kind of hoping that they would try to get Gates into Broncos camp.
I don't know that he would do that to the Chargers fans. You know what I mean? I don't think he wants to play that much. Like, he would come back for the Chargers, but I don't think he's coming back for a division rival.
Hey,
it's not like a Jamal Charles situation where he's mad at Kansas City and
right.
Now he's mad at Denver as well. So
Jamal Charles was absolutely mad at Kansas City.
Oh, he's furious at Denver after last year.
Yeah.
Holding him out so he couldn't get his bonus.
Right. Yeah. And that's problematic. Let's get some comments here really quickly. I know that you have to go, so whenever you're free to get out, do you want to look at some comments really quickly?
Yeah, let's do
see
that.
if we got any questions.
What do we got?
All right. Well, Wade says Twitter templates. Blank is looking good. Blank and blank are clicking. Eye roll.
Yes.
That's right on the nose.
Andy's got an eye roll in there.
KC fans are women. They don't get boners.
I can personally attest to that being untrue. This guy I was with last night. No, I'm just kidding.
Brady reference, thumbs up, thumbs up. Archaic archetype, Dr. Seuss approves.
I do work hard on my alliteration.
All right. Well, really appreciate you as always. Thank you very much for coming out.
Someone seems, I think Jenna says hola.
Hola, Tia.
Jenna?
What is Tia, Jenna? What's that? Oh, your aunt's watching. Okay, great.
Oh,
great.
She's saying it to someone. That's not a Spanish word.
Right,
That's literally her name, TJ.
Yeah. Tia.
Oh, okay. I'm an idiot. I didn't take Spanish.
Okay, all right. Well, that's great, and we'll be paying a lot of attention to you on Twitter and on the Phantom Football Forum. By the way, guys, I know you saw the advertisement of Mr. Super Deep V over here.
We're going to replace that.
Promoting the Phantom Football Forum, but it really is. It's a spectacular thing because all that stuff that you assume that insiders have knowledge of that they can't tell you in public, that's the kind of stuff that you get. It's next level insight on what's going on inside front offices. It's next level insight on what you need to do on gambling days, how you need to set your lineups. There's obviously a huge gambling component to information. We're going to give you information. We're not going to tell you necessarily who you vote or who you bet on, but we're going to give you the information, and it's all because this guy is very, very well connected.
Wade says I'm putting him to sleep. Well, Wade, you can buy my Soothing Sounds of Benjamin Albright's Sleep Time Aid Voice CD, also available in MP3 format on the Phantom Football Forum.
I believe you can get a CD duo. You can get the 2 CDs
double
for
disc.
one price, double disc of the Bill Snyder Sleep Tracks. You know how they do those like humpback whales? The sounds of the rainforest.
Yeah, I did that. That happened.
Yeah.
That was for you, Wade.
The double CD pack, Albright and Snyder.
You paid double for that action copy.
All right, great stuff, man. Thank you as always.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. All right, we'll be talking to Benjamin Albright quite a bit out here at Denver Broncos training camp, and you'll probably be seeing some of those insider insightful videos on the Phantom Football Forum later this afternoon. So Go there, ask Ben all the questions, phantomfootballforum.com. You can also go there through the Phantom Facebook page as well. So wanted to remind everybody of that. I mentioned that we talked to Vance Joseph earlier in the day. We're going to play that interview for you now. Here is head coach Vance Joseph with myself, Nate Lundy, and Sean Drotar. This is courtesy of Mile High Sports.
Back live at Dove Valley as Broncos training camp continues here. It's the UC Health Training Center, and the head coach, awfully nice to make some time here this morning. Vance Joseph is with us. Coach, good morning. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming back out to decide to put up with us. I mean, there's enough people you can talk to. The fact that you take a few minutes for us, I'm pretty sure you lost a bet. You sure? Okay. Sean, do me a favor. Give him your headset just because the mic's not working. Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, now we're sounding much better. Yes, we're much better.
All right.
Coach, we've got your second year here, and I know you've commented on this before. You talked about it during the off season. We've talked about it here as camp has gotten underway. You've said we as a team, as a coaching staff, need to do better. How do you do that?
Well, it started in the off season. I think obviously we made some nice moves with our draft and free agency. So we've added the pieces that we need. The coaches have to provide the platform of clarity, to add accountability with the players. So we've done that, and you can feel it. It's turning, and our guys are focused and hungry to win.
I know this is something you've probably already answered, but, you mentioned the offseason. Aqib Talib was a big part of this defense for a long time. How do you replace a guy like that? Not just his skill set,
Right.
but
Well,
everything else he brings.
You don't replace the player, obviously, but we have guys that are capable. And, it's a team sport, guys. The best teams win, not the best individuals. So we are satisfied with our defensive backs. We added Tremaine Brock. We expect Roby to take a great step for us at corner. So we're excited about those young guys in the back end.
Now, there's a lot of youth and a lot of inexperience, at least at the NFL level, when they're both the running backs and the tight ends. Now,
Sure.
you addressed both those rooms yesterday. What do you like about that? You actually seen more that was a positive than a negative.
It is, especially at running back. I mean, it's a young man's position. And we have 5 qualified guys, so I'm excited about those guys. All 5 guys are different, so they provide a different skill set that we can use in our offense. But it's been plenty of examples in this league the last 4 or 5 years with young running backs, taking the league, as a storm, so we're excited about our 5 guys. At tight end, the same thing, we've got 4 or 5 capable young guys, athletic, long guys, and that also helps special teams. Because if you're too old at those positions, those guys can't help your own team. So I'm excited about our young guys. And, again, they're all qualified. It's not like we have guys that are not capable of playing at a high level. So that's exciting for me.
When you talk about the young guys that are there, obviously Royce Freeman was drafted, brought in. I don't want to make you necessarily focus in on one. I know you're excited about all 5. But what did you see with Royce Freeman at Oregon that made you say, this is a guy that I want to have be a part of our offense?
He can carry the load. I mean, he's a guy that can carry the ball 20 times a game with efficiency and not turn the ball over. I mean, he's 235 pounds. He runs 4.5, and he's a durable guy, and he's a tough guy. He's very mature beyond his years. So we're excited about the whole group. But, obviously, time will tell. We got 5 guys, and we're all competing. So we'll see what happens with that group.
Okay, so I've been wanting to ask you this question since it came out in the Sports Illustrated article that Aqib Talib was in. Was what Aqib Talib said about the defense true, that it was like half as much as it was under Wade Phillips? And then are you familiar with what I'm –
As far as what?
Well, yeah, so Aqib Talib was basically saying that you guys had adjustments and calls and things that you could make on the field, and that – excuse me, under Wade Phillips, there was a lot of that, obviously,
Right.
and then Joe Woods comes in, same defense, but it was like half as much that they could do on the field. Was that true?
I don't recall that. Obviously, I worked for Wade,
Right.
a long time, and I thought Wade had a great system. I thought, Joe has a great system, and it's part of my system. So I'm not familiar with that. I don't recall that. I know we played good defense last year. We finished fourth in pass and like fifth in run, but we weren't very good in the red zone, which led to our points allowed not being very good.
Sure.
But as far as run and pass, we were really good, but we were like 23rd in the red zone, which led to being 21 in points allowed. So I don't recall that. And again, that was last year, and obviously schemes change week to week.
Yeah.
As far as the game plans, we did what was best for the team.
Yeah.
And that's our goal each week as coaches.
What did you attribute that to, though? The fact that your defense was so good in a lot of those categories, but then in the red zone it was totally different.
Well, I think in the red zone, you can watch it. We watched it last night, matter of fact. It was a lot of error, and we can do better as coaches, and obviously players could do better, but we're going to correct that. And, I'm confident that with that correction, we can get back into the top 5 and both sides, and yardage, which is important, but I think points allowed is much more important, obviously.
Sure. Right.
Derek Wolfe yesterday talked about the offensive line and how, quite frankly, he actually used the term at will when he talked about getting through them last year. This year, however, he said that his exact quote was seeing things he hadn't seen before. Right. So some of these guys are holdovers. Some of them have been moved around like Ron Leary. What are you seeing this early on in minicamp to make you feel more confident about the offensive line's growth?
Well, I think adding Valdir, who's got 100 starts at tackle in this league, so that's exciting. And getting Ron Leary back to left guard, that's a spot that we paid him from, so getting him back to his home base and adding Valdir, it's going to help us be a more solid offensive line. My goal, guys, to keep all 5 guys together, so we can build some chemistry there. And last year we had, guys in and out, guys competing. It's tough to build chemistry that way, so having all 5 guys healthy, having them work together is going to benefit our line this year.
Last one for you, Coach, before we let you go. And again, thank you so much for the time. We know you've got to make the rounds and talk to all the stations. Number one thing for you as you sit here right now compared to when you sat here with us a year ago, what is different about Vance Joseph?
I think what's different is, you kind of prepare for the traps early on, and you get your team prepared for the traps early on, right? I knew last year we were going to have adversity, but in my opinion, knowing that from experience now, you spend more time early on preparing for that, right? And explain to your team when it happens, here's our plan to get out of it, and it's my job to make sure when adversity hits that we get out of it quicker. Last year we spent too much time in the basement. We came out of it late, and it was too late. So it's my job to make sure, if it does happen, which it will happen, that we get through it quicker and cleaner this year.
Well, you got the towel around your neck right now. What I'm hopeful for is that you don't just start dripping sweat because you're nervous about anything. It's good to see you with a smile on your face. It's good to see that as we kick off camp. Coach, we always appreciate the time. Get a chance to talk with you more and talk more about this team as we go throughout camp. Thanks so much for stopping by.
All right, welcome back. That was head coach of the Denver Broncos, Vance Joseph. And, of course, you saw on screen mostly Nate Lundy. But we're going to have a ton of player interviews, coach interviews while we're out here at Denver Broncos training camp. So, by all means, please continue to watch, continue to listen, and you'll get all that insight out there. As much insight as you can get at training camp. I don't really feel like training camp is an insightful thing. I feel like training camp is a reason for us to get all riled up about nothing, or riled up about what we think is going to happen. It's just talking season. Now, injuries are a big deal at training camp. In fact, every week, if you want to go and look at the media coverage, if you want a real legitimate criticism of media coverage of the NFL, it's this. 95% of all of the crap that you get out of an organization during those media availabilities is about, it's about stuff that doesn't tell you anything. You can try. I've been covering NFL teams for most of my career. And I remember, you got to really dig, and you got to really know guys before they're willing to tell you, even just a little bit in the NFL. And, that kind of hurts a little bit. It hurts a lot of people in terms of what they think they know about teams, because they just assume whatever comes from the podium is the truth. And I think a lot of times teams operate that way as well, where they say, well, you didn't agree with our version of the story, therefore you're lying, therefore you can't say that. which there's a lot of in Denver, to be honest with you. But that's not because the organization is bad or different. I think it's because they want to control the flow of information. So the only thing, the 5% that's really valuable, is almost exclusively about injuries. Because the injuries, there are rules about what they have to tell you. They have to tell you certain things about certain players who are or are not going to play. And there's a lot of roster stuff and practice squad players and rules that surround those things. So they're pretty much locked in. And they did a really smart thing. They had the injury report come out on Thursdays after practice, so that on Friday, when you're at the end of the news cycle and nobody gives a shit anymore, and they're just waiting for game day to get here, you can release all that injury news. And the only people who really pay attention to injury news, are people who are gambling. People who want to set their fantasy lineups, or people who want to place wagers on games in Vegas. And so all of that stuff matters. Anytime people will put something financially, they'll put a financial value on information, then you know that that's real. The rest of it, I mean, Case Keenum's really showing a lot of chemistry with Demaryius Thomas, excuse me. Demaryius Thomas. It's like, okay, well, that might be true. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. There's not really anything that we can say that's going to make that true. There's nothing that they can do out here that's going to prove the thing that you just said. You can't see that on a practice field. It's one of the worst things about football, unfortunately, is that it's limited in your ability to evaluate things when it's not in the actual game. And other sports are not like that. You can evaluate how a guy hits. You can evaluate how a guy pitches. You can evaluate fielding. You can evaluate the sport of baseball when it's not actually in a game, because they play so many games. It's always the same thing. You can always evaluate basketball. Basketball, you can tell things about a player just athletically, because athleticism is so important. It's like, okay, well, if you can do this, then you can do this in a game. And you can really make that correlation in basketball. Man, in football, you can't tell me anything about these quarterbacks. You cannot tell me that this is why Paxton Lynch has been sold to the Denver Broncos faithful for the last few years, erroneously, is that Paxton Lynch can come out here when he's not allowed to get hit and just scorch defensive backs, because he knows he's not going to get hit. He knows he has all the time in the world to complete that pass. In a game, you have 2 seconds at most to get that ball out of your hand, or you are being blamed for why you lost the game. And that pressure is just insurmountable for some guys. Paxton Lynch is one of those guys, obviously, he's never going to be a good quarterback. Never. And that's a pretty definitive statement. You can accuse me of being hot takey all you want to. Paxton Lynch will never be a starting quarterback in this league. He may not be a backup here in 6 months. We don't even know. So the idea that you can come out here and tell me something about a quarterback in practice, get real. You are just tricking the stupid people on social media if you're trying to put out reports about how so-and-so looks good at the quarterback position. Bull hockey. You can't even tell me stuff about offensive linemen other than that they get hurt. Garrett Bowles got his bell rung today. That was news. But if you're trying to tell me that Menelik Watson's making a lot of improvement at camp, I told people you can go look it up. In fact, Jenna's right here with us. She might be able to do this research project for us here. Last year, I tweeted out something about how Menelik Watson was getting beaten like he stole something by Von Miller every single play. And people came back at me and was like, well, it's Von Miller. What's that supposed to mean? I'm like, no, it's not like he's getting beat and he's looking good getting beat, and that's why he gets beat, because he's Von Miller. No, he was getting beat because he's terrible. And like you can see bad. It's one of those things that really sticks out. The extremes are easy to locate. If you're a good player, like an elite level player, you exude eliteness in everything that you do, and you watch the guy move around on the field, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, Von Miller's better than everybody else, and I can see it. It's just sort of inherently true. I can see it on the field. And when somebody's bad, and they're that bad in practice, man, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And so, like, I'm looking for I'm looking for certain things and not others. Bad sticks out really badly. Good sticks out really well. And I will say this. I said it at the beginning of the broadcast, and I'll say it again. What's up, Sarah? By the way, Savage Sarah joining the broadcast. I love Savage Sarah. She is all about sending Vance Joseph to the woods. She does not care for Vance Joseph at all. So I'm looking for certain things out here at practice, and one of the things I wanted to see was, do they know how to practice? Because last year at this time, they did not. They did not know how to practice. And that's another thing I tweeted out was, hey, it doesn't appear that they know what they're doing out here. And people got really upset when I said that. And it was clearly true from the results of the season that they did not know how to practice. And it is night and day how good how efficient and how clear cut everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. There aren't guys standing around not knowing what to do, shooting the breeze with somebody they played with in college. There's none of that stuff. We're here to work. We're going to get through our installs. We're going to get through our periods. We're going to get through all these things that we need to do every day at practice in a very methodical and professional way. And today, don't take this the wrong way, Denver. It looked a lot like a Chiefs practice. It looked a lot like an Andy Reid practice. And there is nobody in the league who knows how to practice better than Andy Reid. I'll give him credit on that. That dude knows how to prepare a team for game day. Now, once they get to game day, he has his limitations. But practicing, preparing, nobody in the league does it better than Andy Reid. Nobody. And I'm counting Bill Belichick in that too. Belichick's a much better game day coach than Andy Reid. But game day prep, Andy Reid's the best in the league. Might be the best coach ever in the league's history at that. Let's see here. Wade says, this is too Broncos-oriented for me. I'll check back tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you very much, Wade. I'm sorry that it was too Broncos-oriented for you. We're going to get weird out here eventually. Today's my first day at camp. I'm excited to be back around football again, so I'm going to talk about some football. Every once in a while, this is going to be a very sports-centric show. I know that upsets a lot of you, but just know that my struggle here. I really want to talk about things that aren't football, but it feels right today. I'm out here. I'm looking at a practice field. Today feels like the right day to talk about football. Sarah says, if he says he is excited, it's exciting. One more time. Shake my head. Go camping, Vance. Yeah, I get you. I get you, Sarah. She also says, Broncos on-the-job training head coach position. That is, yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Because that's kind of what it was last year for Vance Joseph. Now, I said it last year. He makes a really good first impression. I was rooting for him. I'm rooting for him to succeed this year. I still don't know if he's qualified to be a head coach. I'm just telling you what I see. And today I saw a team that looked like they knew what they were doing. And last year I saw a team that had no fucking clue. They were on another planet when it came to preparation. And that's probably why they went 5-11, because they have pretty good talent. I said this on Twitter earlier today, and I know that a lot of people are going to look at this and think that I'm kowtowing to Broncos fans. I don't know if they're going to have a winning season or not, but I think it's definitely a debatable point. And I think what Albright said today, and Albright, regardless of whether or not you think he's boring, he sees the game really, really well. And so when he says essentially, I mean, he went a little bit further. I'm not ready to say they're going to compete for second in the division. But winning record, yeah, I think they're like an 8-8 team. I thought this was maybe 5-11 to 7-9 at best kind of team. And after getting out here and watching the way they go about their business and kind of just seeing the organization of the team on display, I'll improve that. I'll say that they might have a winning record this year. They might be a 9-7. Heck, if the ball bounces their way, they get lucky a couple of times, 10-6 team. They're not an elite level team. I don't know how the quarterback position is going to work out. I don't know how the offensive line, especially on the right side, is going to work out. I don't know how all the new faces, granted possibly talented faces, are going to work out on defense or on the wide receiving core. But I do know they look like a football team now, and they did not look like a football team a year ago. So that's improvement. And I think that all Broncos fans who are watching this right now, like, you're always going to have expectations. You're always going to want your team to succeed. I saw some guys predicting the Broncos going to the Super Bowl this year. It's like, okay, well, have fun being a fan. I hope that you enjoyed that exercise of just picking your team to win every matchup through the postseason that we don't even know the matchups for yet. That's fair enough. Your excitement is noted. But if we're talking about who is really good in the league and who really isn't, I'm leaning towards saying that they're going to be a middle of the pack team this year, which is an improvement over what they were a season ago. They're probably going to be picking like 12th in the draft. I think that that's kind of where I see them, is right there on the outside, looking in on the postseason. We'll see how things progress. It's not good news that they have Garrett Bowles going through concussion protocol or whatever they want to call it out here at training camp. Had his bell rung. You heard Albright say earlier that he's lucid. He's walking around. He walked to his locker. All of that's fine. So yeah, I think all of that, at least in terms of how of how we look at guys that we expect to perform at a high level once the season gets here. I don't think there's any concern about Garrett Bowles being ready to go. Now, is there going to be concern about whether or not he's going to have too many holding calls? Sure. That's a problem. That's going to be a problem for him for probably at least the next season, maybe 2 seasons. Guys who have that issue don't usually correct it in one off season. And look, he might. But we always come back to the same theme. There are teams that you hope for, and there are teams that you trust in. And the Broncos are squarely in the hope category and will be all season long. But I think that your hope is probably, I'm leaning towards saying that your hope's going to be a little bit more actualized this season than I initially thought. We'll have to wait and see how Case Keenum reacts. And the other thing, too, about this is that there is no doubt in anyone's mind that this is Case Keenum's team. Case Keenum is the quarterback on this team. He is the leader. He is the face of the team. Not face of the franchise. Face of the team. He's the guy who is going to basically be the leader calling the shots. It's his team. They have given the reins over to somebody after a 13-2 season, started 15 games, 13-2, or because he lost the playoff game. I think in total, he was 13-2 or something like that. That's a really good place. That's better than anybody could have asked for. I know some of you are asking for a lot more, and you want Super Bowls, you want playoffs, you want beat the Chiefs because you've lost 5 out of the last 6 to them. There are a lot of there are a lot of things that people are going to expect from this team this year that I don't necessarily think you're going to get, but you're going to have a team that's going to compete. I mean, you can feel this team. That dog will hunt. This team's good enough to do that. They will be in a lot of games. We don't know how the injury situation is going to work out. I don't know how Case Keenum's going to work out, and I also don't know how much Vance Joseph has improved in terms of his ability to call the shots over the last 3 or 4 months. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out pretty quickly whether or not they can do this or not, because they've got a pretty daunting schedule, and unlike last season, I think that they're going to have a lot more opportunities to prove what they are or are not on the road, which is going to be big for them, because they weren't really a great road team last year. They weren't really a great home team either. But they haven't had losing seasons back-to-back since 1972. So make sure that you don't have that, and you can keep that streak going. You can keep a lot of people's faith alive in you. You have back-to-back losing seasons in Denver. I think people are going to be getting their heads cut off. I mean, getting on the chopping block of a lot of those guys. Okay, let's get to some comments here. Hey, what's up, Brent? Brent Malia finally joining in. Brent, if you've been looking at the comments, everybody is really excited. In fact, let me see if I can find some of these comments here, Brent. What did you guys say Brent was? What's on here? There was one in here. Brent Malia's political ad, a Pixar tire plug. I don't know what that means. Brent Malia beat Chuck Norris in a staring contest with his eyes closed. There you go, Brent. They're all in love with you. If you missed it, we talked with Benjamin Albright on the show earlier today, live here from Broncos training camp. And if you have an opportunity, go sign up for Phantom Football Forum. It is less than a Starbucks mocha. Go a month. I mean, $5 a month, that's nothing for the kind of information that wins you a lot of money in Vegas, the kind of information that gets you a step ahead of everybody else, the kind of information that a lot of reporters have but can't tell you because it's sensitive or it's a little bit maybe it's a little bit naughty. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories that people who are in the know, insiders, have that they tell people like me, but they can't tell people in the public. They can't publish it on Twitter. So if you want all that stuff that Benjamin Albright can't tell you on Twitter, and he says a lot on Twitter, so I imagine if you're going into a place where you spend $5 a month to hear Benjamin Albright talk, the stuff you're getting is going to be 10 times better. So go to Phantom Football Forum. It's just $1 to sign up for the first month, and then after that it's only $5. That's a pretty great deal if you ask me. All right, and once again, want to remind everybody, we're out here at Broncos training camp. We're going to be out here all week long, all throughout training camp. It's about 2.5 weeks worth. And, of course, as always, share this broadcast with your friends. We get everybody who's in the audience involved. So if you're giving shout-outs, if you want to get a shout-out, just watch the video, and we will get to all the comments in there. We like making the audience a star of the show. So if you want to be a part of that, like Wade is and Andy are, and a lot of people who come in as fans and become a really good fixture of our community here at Phantom, by all means, share our broadcast with your friends, and we're going to be giving away some prizes to people who share the video a lot. So we've already been sending stuff out via mail to Wade Zetterberg, who's one of our big personalities here in the comments section. Huge plus to him, and a huge plus to Brent. Shout out to Brent, who he goes the extra mile. This is what he does for fans. Brent saw Wade was a fan, loved Wade's enthusiasm, sent him a nice little gift packet, and then he posted it on social media. That's the kind of TLC, tender loving care, you get from Brent Malia and Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. TJ'sagent.com is where you go to find out more info about Brent. He helped us find our perfect dream house here in Denver, and he can help you do the same thing. So go to TJ'sagent.com, check out Brent Malia. He will contact you ASAP. Also, if you're looking for help with your mortgage, buying, selling, refinancing in Denver, does not matter. PlatteRiverMortgage.com. Sean Sedita and Platte River Mortgage have been serving the Denver area for a long time, and they will continue to do so at an elite level as long as their doors are open. And they're going to be open for a very, very long time. So contact Sean Sedita at PlatteRiverMortgage.com if you're looking for help with your mortgage. If you're looking for a house in Denver, BrentMalia.com or TJ'sagent.com. Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. I want to thank everybody for watching. We're going to have more for you all throughout the week here from Denver Broncos training camp. And, oh yeah, by the way, I'm all in on the Rockies. Have been all season long. You need to get in on the bandwagon right now, because if you don't, all the seats are going to run up. We have a capacity for the bandwagon for the Rockies, and it's filling up right now, guys. So if you don't get on the bandwagon, we're going to be having some problems here. We're going to be having some issues if you don't get on the bandwagon, because you're going to want to get on the bandwagon when Rocktober gets here. And you know what? We're going to be like, sorry, dude, you were out. You were out on the Broncos. Or out on the Rockies. You can't get in on the Rockies. So we're gonna be giving out tickets. If you don't have a ticket, you get kicked off the blimp like in Indiana Jones. All right, that's going to do it for us here from Broncos training camp. This is noon o'clock, once again, only on Phantom.